Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today I wanted to talk about identifying yourself and sort of owning your career and owning your title as an artist. I'm in Astrology 365 blank page. I'm going to be using the Kuretake Zig Clean Color Real Brush, and this one is in the color Marine Green. I haven't used this in absolutely forever, so it was time to sort of bust it out and see if it's still working and doing its thing. But let's get to talking. And ooh, yeah, gosh, I love that color. And you can see it on the screen. Ooh, it's a double win. Okay. So we have to talk about this, the small elephant traipsing about the room. And that's the fact that when it comes to art and being an artist, and people asking what you do for a living, for fun, for a side hustle, for a part-time job, owning it. Being able to say with confidence, with absolutely like pure clarity and ownership and pride, saying I'm an artist, I'm a creator, I'm an illustrator, however you choose. And there's, so many specific titles you can then narrow it down to. Oh, I'm a photographer, I'm a seamstress, I do sculpture, I'm an illustrator. But being able to say the artist word, like, it's not a bad word. And for a lot of people, they don't claim it or own it. And I think this is one of those things that is also really similar to I guess they go hand in hand. It's kind of a Venn diagram with a considerable amount of overlap, and that's people having imposter syndrome and not feeling like they are an artist or they are a creator. And if you're making art, you're an artist. And the example I've heard people use before when speaking is, a plumber's still a plumber even if they're not, even if it's their day off. They still identify as that job, as that career. It's not something that because they're not currently working on a project, that they're not a plumber. So for artists, that mindset, and I'm not sure how this came about, if it's like a pressure thing or a media thing or just how inadequate making money at this sort of job level can be. I know a lot of very successful artists that just don't make a ton of money, and it's heartbreaking. And so there's a lot of like stigma attached to the artist word of, oh yeah, they've got to be weird, or they've got to be artsy, or they've got to be struggling. They got to keep true to this, they got to be this way. And everybody sort of has a preconceived notion of what it means or what it looks like to be an artist. And a lot of that just isn't true. It's just not. A lot of it, it's an I, spoiler alert. A lot of that just doesn't, that's stuff that's been thrown at us by media, by movies, by things that just aren't helpful. So we need to sort of come together and own it. And there are ways to do this. There are ways to shift mindsets and shift thought processes and educate others and educate ourselves and sort of get on a healthier track about it. And as a community, as a group of amazing people, we can do that. And if we start doing that now, we will help future generations. We won't just help ourselves, but we'll clear a path for others that follow that don't have to go through this stigma. We can help them. And I'm all about that. Like, I don't want anybody else to feel like announcing that they do art or they're an artist is something to be ashamed of, or it's something they just can't say out loud because it sounds weird, or like they're bragging, or there's so many weird things and ideas attached to the word of being an artist that just don't ring true. And it doesn't help when like social media platforms perpetuate it, or other artists or other folks, like maybe there's famous people posting art and they sort of perpetuate certain things. And it needs to there needs to be a re-education on it. It's okay to say you're an artist, even if you haven't drawn anything in a long time. Even if you're taking a year off. Even if you're not drawing. Even if you're not selling anything. Even if you've never sold anything. You're still an artist if you are creating and making and doing art. You're still an artist. And there should be as many like examples of this and ideas about this then as there are artists in the world. Like, this isn't something that should be so rigid and so uniform, because it's art. It should be creative. The title should be creative. The people owning it should be creative. It should take on all kinds of life and look different for everybody. It shouldn't look the same. It shouldn't have one definition. It should be unto itself artistic. So how do we start about changing this? And some of it's through conversation with people that maybe don't have the right idea about it. We can educate kindly with our words and our actions. And I would never recommend like starting an argument or a fight or anything like that online. It's trying to communicate online sometimes. There's too much lost in translation because you can't see facial features and inflection. You don't know when somebody's actually joking. You don't know the person's sense of humor. There's so much you can't tell in typed messages to each other. So I would never really be like, oh, you need to get online and tell people this, that, or the other, because it'll probably just start a fight. And that's not helpful. That's counterproductive. But we can, through setting examples, we can do write-ups. When we post things, when we post our art, we can write about some of the things, ideas we've been wrestling with, concepts. You know, if you suffer from imposter syndrome, if you have a tough time identifying as an artist, even though you make art and you're doing your thing, writing about that, being honest about that. Other artists feel alone. A lot of us work, you know, at our desk by ourselves. It's a cave. It can be kind of lonely. And we're isolated from each other. And it can be very, very difficult to sort of reach out and know that, yeah, you're not the only one feeling this way. And if you're not the only one feeling this way, the kind of feeling of knowing you're not alone can be really helpful in beginning the process of identifying and moving forward and trying to get out from under some of the things that are difficult to wrestle with, like owning your title, owning how you see yourself, how you view your job. You know, even if it's just something you do for fun, being able to say, oh yeah, I'm in my spare time, I'm an artist. It's okay to say that. That's not a conceited thing. That's not a narcissistic thing. It's just like a factual thing, and changing the whole way through example, through ourselves. Now, if it's something where it's not anybody else making you feel this way, you feel this way, like you have trouble saying the words, and I don't know what it is about the word artist that a lot of folks struggle with. It's okay to say it and call yourself one. Like, I'm here for it. But if it's something that you wrestle with personally, and maybe it's because you're not supported by friends or family members, and maybe the whole starving artist trope is ringing true for you, and so admitting you're an artist is difficult because of how people tear it down, and like the difficulty you have with paying bills and making money is just weighing on you. like emotionally, mentally, physically. That can be a lot to unpack. And a way to sort of process that in a positive way would be to sort of do it on your own by yourself. And not just like in your mind. In your mind kind of isn't enough. You have to kind of talk to yourself out loud. And it's okay. It's okay to talk to yourself out loud. And when you go to do that, make sure you're talking to yourself as you would talk to your best friend, with absolute kindness and support and love and reverence and respect. And just say, yes, I'm an artist. Yes, my art is progressing. Yes, it's so much better than it was a year ago. I'm so happy that I've switched to this medium, or that I'm finally embracing this subject matter, or I'm tackling harder things than I did last year. Really congratulate yourself out loud. That's part of the ownership that we can take on our own. And then through that, when people ask, it's not such a jarring, strange thing to announce. Yes, I'm an artist. Yes, it's okay. I don't sell anything. I'm not that kind of artist. I create privately just for me. It's just something I like to do to unwind. And then it doesn't have to become something deprecating, where, oh, I'm not very good. That's not what they asked, unless they asked that, in which case, oh gosh, I have been asked several times. And I mean no disrespect to the people who have asked me, are you any good at it? I don't know. You tell me. Art is subjective. Maybe. What's good? What's good to you? What do you consider good? That's a tough spot that people have no problem like throwing at other folks. Like, oh, you're a CPA. Are you any good at it? Like, I should hope so. You get paid to do it. It's sort of one of those things where you don't hear a lot of other people get asked that about their job, but artists get asked that. I can't even count the amount of times people have asked me, oh, are you any good? I like to think so. It's one of those things that, like, I don't know where people feel so comfortable asking such a question. Like, would you ask the lawyer that? Like, are you any good at it? How many times did it take you to pass the bar? Like, some questions are just, I don't know. And that's one of them that goes with the stigma of saying you're an artist, is people want to know if you're good at it. Like, I don't do stuff that looks like any of the old masters, but I'm not really interested in the old masters. So I don't oil paint. What is your definition of good? What were you taught in school and shown in school? It probably isn't very inclusive. And it's probably very specific. And so that's people's sort of set standard, at least in the United States, when it comes to specific art education, unless you're taking classes and doing a major that has art or design in it. What you've been shown and what you know, like my daughter out the gate knew Vincent van Gogh and could recognize his work because they talked about that in elementary school, but then didn't know anybody else. So that Van Gogh is the set standard that you grow up with, and that's what's normalized. And then people ask if you're any good. They're comparing you to something so specific that no other artist would be compared to. Like, in no world would people take... I'm trying to think of a really good example. Just like an unrealistic standard of comparison. We don't compare to identify that way. We don't immediately think of a chef and be like, oh, if you're not, Gordon Ramsay, you're not good. That's not how that works. If you're not an Iron Chef, you can't possibly be good. If you don't have a Michelin star kitchen or something, you can't be good. You don't In other professions, you don't compare it to whatever the top echelon is and then work yourself backwards going, okay, if you're not this, then it's bad. Well, then everybody's bad. Nobody's good. And why is anybody creating art? Do you see how this is such a toxic, unhelpful way of thinking? And we have to flip the script and just start saying out loud, yes, I'm an artist. Are you any good? I'm the best. I'm the best I've ever been. It's okay to have that sense of strength and confidence and keep going and just get out from under. You can ask questions when somebody asks a question like that. Are you any good at your job? Are you good at your hobbies? You have a fantasy football team. You play bocce ball. Are you any good? You can flip it and they can see it from that angle. Oh, that's kind of strange. Maybe I shouldn't have asked it that way. And then you can say well, why did you? Where did you get that idea from that's how we compare and question artists? To dispel the myth that announcing you're an artist is something that should be questioned and something that needs to be defended. It's just because art's so amazing. And it's so incredible, and it's such a great pastime and fun thing to do that some of these conversations can really suck the joy out of it. And I don't want the joy sucked out of it. I mean, obviously this face is looking less like a face. But we can do that. We can absolutely ask questions to other people's questions, and we can start talking to ourselves in a way that's kind and respectful and positive and self-affirming, and just change our inner mindset about it, and we'll then enjoy art and making art that much more and getting out of our head about it. I told a couple people that I met one time that I'm an artist, I'm an illustrator, and they asked if I did any animation, and I said no, and they're like, oh, that's too bad. And that was kind of their one focal point, one interest. And I was like, that's such an interesting take on how to talk to someone about their job. If it's only this one medium, I will discuss it with you, but otherwise I have zero interest, and that's absolutely fine. But when other people say their jobs, it's not questioned the same. Oh, you work in the prison system? Oh. Oh, if you're not a security guard, I'm not interested. It's such a strange thing. And I don't know where some of this comes from. I think some of it is movies. I think some of it is as we study other artists and we study their lives and biographies about them, and a lot of them were starving and having a tough time. That seems like the norm. It's not normal. I'm telling you, it's not normal to, cut one's ear off. That has been so normalized that it's just bananas to me. Some of the behavior of some of these artists, where they go to other countries and they start doing art for these other countries, how they treat the locals. It's not discussed enough. It's been normalized. It's not okay. And some of the behavior of some of them, especially when you start digging deep and really start learning about them, is just not okay. And it's so excused. And it's just not questioned anymore. Because everybody's studied them so much. And it's fine to them. It's fine to everyone. It's not okay. Normalize artists working for corporations as a success. Normalize artists doing art shows as a success. It's not selling out. That's such a weird mindset. I talked to a really great photographer, and he felt like he was selling out. And I was like, because you're making money? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, but how else are you going to live your life and support your family? And contribute to society and do your stuff if you're not making any money? Like, how does that work? Like, how does that work? If people are telling you that you're a sellout, what are they eating? Like, how are they buying food that you're the sellout and you have a house and a car and like, I don't understand. I don't understand. It's okay to work for a company, to work for like a college, to work for all these different places that aren't just yourself. You don't have to struggle alone in the dark. And then that's the only way in which you are a true artist. Like, I can't with that whole thing. That idea is archaic and outmoded and not helpful to anyone. It is not helpful to anyone. If you ever hear of anyone telling anyone they're a sellout, no. The definition of success is being happy, being healthy. And the only way you can be healthy is if you're physically healthy, you have a roof over your head, you have clean water, you have food, you have the things you need in life. I'll be happy you have some of your, not just needs met, but some of your wants met as well. You're able to do fun things. Your hobby, your job helps you afford some of the things you want to do in life, some of your long-term goals, some of your other things that you're interested in. It's not art or nothing. That's just not how it works. And we have to correct this and stand up to this and not have it anymore. So we can start with self. We could start talking to ourselves kindly out loud and owning our artist job, owning our artist title. And we can dispel myths and weird normalized things that aren't okay. Like, you would never tell someone who's a doctor that makes money as a doctor, you're a sellout. You work at a hospital, you're a sellout. Where else is a doctor supposed to work to make money? Like, they could open up their own clinic, I guess. They can open up something. But if they're not doing nonprofit, then they're not a success. Like, you would never say that to anybody else. And that should be sort of the giveaway there, is if you wouldn't say that to any other profession, don't say it about artists. It's just not true. It's just not helpful. A lot of artists are very, very creative. At one point, I worked around a bunch of artists, and they had very unique habits and lifestyles and things, and are sensitive. They're sensitive people, okay? A lot of sensitive folks are artists. Not always. It's not always true. But being kind and being respectful to those around you and making sure that no one else is being unkind and disrespectful around you can really go a long way towards helping and correcting this, because it's not doing anybody any favors. It just isn't. Like, I don't want to see a fellow artist feel bad for getting a paycheck, for having a retirement plan built into it. Like, why is that not successful? That's amazing. They found a way to do something they love and be able to support themselves. We have to own it. We have to own it, we have to say it, and then we have to support it in others. So it could be just a positive comment to someone that posts, "Hey, I got published in a magazine. Congratulations, that's amazing. What a great success." It could be you sitting down for the first time in months and months and months and drawing something, and then turning around, looking yourself in the mirror, or as you look at your art and going, "I'm so proud of you for doing this today, for sitting down, for drawing, for trying something new, for busting out something you haven't used in a while, for getting over that sort of hesitation, that mental block, and just creating something." But we have to help each other And we have to help future generations. We have to. We have to. We have to be the most helpful group out of all the groups of professions. The artists have to take care of each other. It is not a competition. We are not all making the same exact pieces of art. That is not how it works here. We can elevate each other. We can promote each other. We can uplift each other. We can complement each other. We can keep doing these things that assist, that reach out to those that are working by themselves and that are isolated. I haven't seen too many people being picked on, but I have seen some terrible opportunities offered. The work for exposure, the work for portfolio pieces. Here, do this work, we're not going to pay you, but it's something that would look great in your portfolio. That's a red flag. That's an absolute red flag. And there's only so many times you can do that before you realize that it's not worth the amount of time. It isn't. And trying to help others and help them acknowledge that, and with folks that have been excluded from the conversations for a long time, you know who they are. Now that they're trying to help them get a seat at the table so they can understand what's going on, I'm trying to educate them about some of this stuff, like, hey, all work should be paid for. None of it should be for exposure. That's a weird thing. That's not how we do this. Everybody gets compensated for their time and their efforts. Standing up for each other and supporting each other and changing the whole trajectory of this industry, of things for our artists, of making them feel good about themselves, not bad, of helping them own who they are and their job title and their status. All that does is create better art. It helps the artist, it helps everyone that follows after them, it helps everyone together. We have to uplift each other, not compete against each other. That's not how this profession works. And you can say, yeah, folks do compete for the same jobs. If you are in more of the graphic design art realm and you're trying to get a job and it's by portfolio, or you do an example of a piece to try and win that commission, then it could be competing, but it's more abstract. It's not that specific. It's the grand scheme of things, of working together and coming together to support each other, making sure that everybody gets the things they need, and being able to say, yes, I'm an artist. Yes, I'm proud of it. I've worked this many years at this hobby, at this job, at this side hustle, however you choose to do your art. I know, I'm just making things up with this illustration because art, that's how it works. We can do this. We can absolutely do this. It's not something that's going to change overnight. It's not something that's going to change in a year. I think if you take this with a grain of salt and you take my advice and you start talking to yourself out loud, kindly, with ownership, and understanding when there are people that just want to sort of bait you into weird conversations, and being able to identify who's really interested in talking about art or talking about your hobbies and who just, I don't know, is jealous or having a tough time or doesn't understand, or who just isn't a nice person. Being able to sort of identify some of that behavioral things, like it's not necessarily about you, it's about the day they're having. And that may be why they're saying scathing things that typically start fights. But we start with ourselves. And we start small. And when somebody asks what you do for a living, what you do for part-time, what you do for fun, you say it with your whole heart. I'm an artist. And you just own it. And it's okay. It's absolutely okay. Nothing bad is going to happen when you say that. You're not going to get hurt. You're not going to get harmed. I mean, gosh, we could look at countries that don't support that, but I'm talking about like when meeting people, when talking to friends, when going out on dates, when meeting folks for the first time and they ask these types of leading questions to get to know you, let them get to know you. And if they say, wow, you're overconfident, say, would you say that to a principal? Would you say that to a teacher? Would you say that to a dentist? If you asked a dentist what they did for a living and they're like, I'm a dentist, would you say that to them? Okay. So why me? Why just artists? Why? Where does that come from? And once we start with ourselves, other people, children are sponges, other people take notice. And it's sort of like planting a seed and an idea that takes off and keeps growing. Those around you, seeing how you act and seeing how you feel about something, can influence the way they feel about it as well. So if someone asks you what you do and you kind of hem and haw and you act really shy about it, they're going to think, oh, this is something you need to act shy about. It's not. It's not. It's okay to own your artist status. It's okay to call yourself that. You make comics. You do little doodles. Maybe you make cards. Whatever the thing is, you're still an artist. That doesn't change. And it's not on you. Whatever their predisposed position of what they think an artist should be or the type of art they should make, that's not about you. That's about them. So if you make a type of art that they don't think is art, again, that's on them for being narrow-minded and not having the creativity and the understanding to acknowledge it as art. That's not about you. It can be very difficult, especially when it's someone whose opinion you really, really value. Like trying to help them understand. That can be kind of a tough pill to swallow. But in the end, knowing that it's not your fault, it's not about you. That could be the education they received. It could be the life they live. It could be how they were brought up. It could be cultural. It could be personal. Like, there's so many things and factors, and you may never know all of them. Some of that stuff's very deeply, it's very personal, it's very intrinsic. So change your mindset on how you view your art. You make it, so obviously I hope you enjoy it and you love it and you have a great time. If you're not enjoying the type of art you make, start changing it up. Start trying weird and unique combinations of mediums, of surfaces, of subject matters. Like, keep spicing it up. But that doesn't mean it's not art, and you're not an artist. And that definition should look different for everyone. It shouldn't be one cookie cutter thing. Oh, if you don't work this many hours a year, you can't call yourself an artist. That's not how that works. It just isn't. And I'm not sure why society feels that way. I don't like it. Obviously, I'm not a fan. Why I'm making a video about it. I believe artists should own what they do. And they should be proud of what they do. I want them to be proud. I want you to be proud of what you do. I want you to be happy of the things you make and love being an artist and love talking about it and doing it and meeting other artists and owning your status as an artist. And it doesn't have to look like any other famous artist's art. It doesn't have to look like that to be art. So, your mission, if you choose to accept it. So your homework today is to go through your art and pull out a piece you really like and talk to yourself out loud about it and name all the reasons why you like it. And then thank yourself for spending the time in creating it, and thank yourself for spending the time to revisit it and congratulate yourself on it. We have to start changing some of the mental ways we look at ourselves and how we judge our art and how we talk about being an artist. We have to do all these things. We have to start putting in that kind of work to start creating more art and better art and uplift those around us. So congratulate a piece of art you did. Go through, pull something out, and be like, dang, I spent a lot of time on this. This looks great. This many months later, like this many years later, it's still aged well. Or maybe it's just a piece of significant art that started you on this path. And hold it up and go, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for having the courage to put this medium to paper and do this and fall in love. Fall in love with art and want to do more of it and want to keep going and want to have fun with it. Be kind to yourself. And however kind you think you're being, be even kinder than that. Even kinder. I think this is something we can all benefit from. We can all work on. And all of this, in the end, will help us. All these things. There's so many different aspects to art and being an artist and creating and problem solving and color theory and all these different things that we talk about. Some of the mental stuff needs to be discussed too. Some of the societal things need to be discussed too. We have to open up the platform to all these ideas and all these things that should be talked about. I will link in the description box the video I did about imposter syndrome, because that plays heavily into this. It's okay to tell people you're an artist. It's okay to stand up for your art, stand up for yourself, stand up for the things that matter to you and others. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.